3 seconds. That's how long it took for Vincent Knuckles Romano to go from laughing to choking on the barrel of Bumpy Johnson's .45 caliber pistol on March 18th, 1933. 3 seconds from making the biggest mistake of his life to understanding he might not have much life left. Vincent was a collector for Lucky Luciano, Italian, arrogant, racist, and on that Friday night at Small's Paradise Jazz Club in Harlem, Vincent made the fatal error of thinking Bumpy Johnson was beneath him. That Bumpy, a black enforcer for Madame Stephanie St. Clair, was just another street thug, someone Vincent could insult publicly and walk away. When Bumpy approached Vincent's table to discuss business, Vincent waved him off like he was swatting a fly. And then Vincent said it, loud enough for the entire club to hear. "Why don't you stick to shining shoes, boy? That's all you're good for." The room went silent. 50 people stopped talking. The jazz band kept playing, but nobody was listening, because everyone in Small's Paradise knew Vincent Romano had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. And Bumpy Johnson, standing there calm as ice, smiled. This is a story of what happened in those next 3 seconds. The story of how one insult cost a man his career, his reputation, and nearly his life. And the story of why nobody in Harlem ever disrespected Bumpy Johnson again. March 1933. Harlem, New York. The neighborhood was thriving despite the Great Depression. Jazz clubs, speakeasies. The Harlem Renaissance was in full swing. But beneath the culture and creativity was a criminal underworld fighting for control. The Numbers Racket was the most profitable illegal operation in Harlem. Poor folks betting nickels and dimes on 3-digit numbers. Most lost, but enough won to keep everyone playing. And the house always made money. Madame Stephanie St. Clair ran Harlem's numbers game. A brilliant black woman from Martinique who'd built an empire through intelligence and ruthlessness. And protecting that empire was Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was 27 years old in March 1933. Born in Charleston, South Carolina, he'd come to Harlem as a teenager, started as a street hustler, worked his way up. By 1933, he was St. Clair's chief enforcer, her bodyguard, her problem solver. Bumpy had earned his reputation through violence and strategy. He'd killed men who threatened St. Clair's operation. He'd survived assassination attempts. He'd proven he was smarter and tougher than most gangsters twice his age. But what made Bumpy dangerous wasn't just violence. It was his understanding of respect. In Harlem, respect was currency, and Bumpy demanded it, not politely, not by asking, but by making it clear that disrespecting him had consequences, fatal consequences. But little did anyone know, March 18th, 1933, would become the day that defined Bumpy's reputation forever. Vincent Knuckles Romano was 35 years old. He'd been a collector for Lucky Luciano's organization for 8 years. His job was simple: collect protection money from businesses in Italian territories, deliver it to Luciano, take his cut, don't ask questions. Vincent was good at his job, tough, intimidating. He'd broken bones, burned buildings, done whatever it took to collect. But Vincent had a problem. He was deeply racist. He saw black people as inferior, as servants, as people who should know their place. And when Lucky Luciano started doing business with Madame St. Clair's Harlem operation, Vincent hated it. In early 1933, Luciano and St. Clair had made a deal. Luciano would stay out of Harlem's numbers racket. In exchange, St. Clair would give Luciano 10% of her profits. It was a good deal for both. Peace instead of war. Money without the bloodshed. But the deal required coordination, monthly meetings, money exchanges. And that meant Luciano's collectors had to work with St. Clair's people, had to work with Bumpy Johnson. Vincent Romano hated every minute of it. March 18th, 1933, was supposed to be a routine meeting. Vincent would come to Small's Paradise, meet with Bumpy, collect Luciano's 10%, leave. Simple, professional. But Vincent walked into Small's Paradise that Friday night drunk, angry, and looking for trouble. The club was packed. Friday night, live jazz, cheap whiskey, 50 people drinking, dancing, having a good time. Vincent sat at a corner table with two of his associates, ordered bourbon, and waited for Bumpy. At 9:30, Bumpy Johnson walked into Small's Paradise. He wore a gray suit, polished shoes, a fedora. He looked professional, respectable, not like the enforcer who'd killed 6 men in the last year. Bumpy spotted Vincent, walked to his table. Calm, no aggression, just business. Mr. Romano, I have your envelope. Bumpy pulled out an envelope from his jacket. 10% of the month's numbers profits. $5,000. Vincent didn't take it. He just stared at Bumpy with undisguised contempt. But here's what Vincent didn't expect. Bumpy didn't react to the disrespect. He just stood there, waiting. Finally, Vincent spoke, his voice loud enough to carry across the club. You know what I think? I think Lucky's making a mistake doing business with you people. You think running a few penny-ante policy banks makes you gangsters? Vincent laughed, a cruel mocking laugh. You're not gangsters. You're just an asterisk S playing dress up. And then Vincent said the words that sealed his fate. Why don't you stick to shining shoes, boy? That's all you're good for. The room went dead silent. The jazz band stopped playing mid-note. Conversations died. Every person in Small's Paradise turned to look, because everyone understood. Vincent Romano had just disrespected Bumpy Johnson in the worst possible way, not just with the slur, but with the shoeshine comment, treating Bumpy like a servant, like he was beneath Vincent, like he didn't deserve respect. And Bumpy Johnson, still holding the envelope, smiled. The smile on Bumpy's face wasn't friendly. It was cold, dangerous, the kind of smile that promised violence. Vincent's 2 associates started to stand, reaching for their weapons. But Bumpy was faster. In one fluid motion, Bumpy dropped the envelope, drew his .45 caliber pistol from his waistband, and stepped forward. Vincent tried to react, tried to push back from the table. But Bumpy grabbed him by his hair with his free hand, yanked his head back, and shoved the pistol barrel into Vincent's mouth. 3 seconds. That's all it took. From insult to gun barrel. 3 seconds. Vincent gagged. His eyes went wide with terror. He tried to speak, but the gun was too deep in his mouth. Bumpy leaned down, his face inches from Vincent's, his voice quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. You want to know what I'm good for? I'm good for making people like you understand respect. I'm good for protecting my community from racist trash like you. And I'm very good at pulling triggers. Vincent's hands were on the table, trembling. His 2 associates had their guns drawn, pointed at Bumpy, but they didn't shoot, because everyone in that room understood the situation. If they shot Bumpy, Vincent died first. The gun was in his mouth. Bumpy's finger was on the trigger. One squeeze and Vincent's brains would be on the wall. And then something unexpected happened. The club's front door opened. Lucky Luciano walked in. Luciano had heard through his network that Vincent was drunk, causing problems. And Luciano had come personally to make sure things didn't escalate. But he walked into a situation already at the breaking point. Lucky Luciano stopped just inside the door, assessed the scene immediately. Bumpy Johnson with a gun in Vincent Romano's mouth. Vincent's men with guns on Bumpy. 50 witnesses watching. This could go very bad very fast. Lucky spoke calmly. Bumpy, let's talk about this. Bumpy didn't move the gun, didn't look at Luciano, just kept staring at Vincent. Your boy here called me an ***********, told me to stick to shining shoes. In front of my people, in my neighborhood. Lucky's face hardened. Vincent, is that true? Vincent couldn't answer. The gun was still in his mouth, but his silence was answer enough. Lucky walked closer. Bumpy, I apologize for Vincent. He's drunk. He's stupid. But killing him here, like this, it's going to cause problems. For both of us. Bumpy's response was measured. He disrespected me. In public. If I let that slide, everyone thinks Bumpy Johnson can be disrespected. That's not acceptable. Lucky nodded. I understand. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to take that gun out of Vincent's mouth. And I'm going to make sure he pays for what he said, not with his life, but with everything else. Bumpy thought for a moment, then slowly pulled a gun out of Vincent's mouth. Vincent gasped, coughed, tears streaming down his face. Lucky turned to him. "Vincent, you're done. Done in New York. Done working for me. Done in this business. You insulted a partner. You disrespected our deal. You're out." Vincent tried to protest. "Boss, Lucky cut him off. You're lucky you're walking out of here alive. That's because of our history. But if I ever see you in New York again, Bumpy finishes what he started tonight. Now get out." Vincent and his two associates left. Humiliated, finished, and the message was sent to everyone in that club. Bumpy Johnson demanded respect, and even Lucky Luciano backed him up. But what nobody expected was what happened next. After Vincent left, Lucky turned to Bumpy, and instead of being angry, Lucky smiled. "That took balls. Sticking a gun in my collector's mouth. Most men would have just taken the insult." Bumpy's response was simple. "I'm not most men, and Harlem's not most neighborhoods. If your people can't show respect, they can't do business here." Lucky extended his hand. "Fair enough, and I apologize. Vincent was out of line. This won't happen again." They shook hands, and in that moment, something shifted. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just St. Clair's enforcer anymore. He was someone Lucky Luciano respected, someone Lucky treated as an equal, and that respect would define the rest of Bumpy's career. The band started playing again. Conversations resumed. But everyone in Small's Paradise would remember that night, the night Bumpy Johnson stuck a gun in a mobster's mouth, and Lucky Luciano backed him up. March 19th, 1933. The next day, word spread through Harlem like wildfire. Bumpy Johnson had put a gun in Vincent Romano's mouth for calling him a racial slur, for telling him to shine shoes. And Lucky Luciano had sided with Bumpy, kicked Vincent out of New York. The story became legend immediately because it proved something important. Black gangsters in Harlem weren't second class. They demanded respect, and they got it, even from the Italian mob. Vincent Romano left New York that week, moved to Philadelphia, tried to start over, but his reputation was destroyed. The man who'd been humiliated by a black enforcer, the man who'd lost his job for racism. He died in 1941, shot in a Philadelphia alley over a gambling debt, forgotten by everyone except the people who'd been at Small's Paradise that night. They remembered, and they told the story for decades. But the real consequences of March 18th, 1933 went beyond Vincent, because that night changed how the mob saw Bumpy Johnson. Lucky Luciano told other bosses, Frank Costello, Meyer Lansky, Joe Bonanno. He told them about Bumpy, about the gun in Vincent's mouth, about the courage it took to stand up like that. And those bosses respected it. When Dutch Schultz tried to take over Harlem's Numbers Racket in 1935, the mob remembered. They remembered that Bumpy had balls, that he'd earned respect. And when Schultz was killed in 1935, partly for threatening prosecutor Thomas Dewey, it was also partly to protect Bumpy's Harlem, because Bumpy had proven he belonged at the table. Bumpy's reputation grew exponentially after that night. He became known as the man who couldn't be disrespected, the enforcer who'd stuck a gun in a mobster's mouth and walked away. When Bumpy eventually became the boss of Harlem after St. Clair retired, everyone understood why. He'd earned it, not just through violence, but through demanding respect, through proving he was nobody's servant, nobody's shoe-shine boy. Years later, in 1963, after Bumpy was released from Alcatraz, a young hustler asked an old-timer what made Bumpy Johnson legendary. The old-timer told him the story of March 18th, 1933. He said, "Bumpy taught us that respect isn't given, it's taken." When Vincent Romano told him to shine shoes, Bumpy could have walked away, could have let it go, but he understood something. If you accept disrespect once, you'll accept it forever. So Bumpy put a gun in that man's mouth, made him understand that black men in Harlem demand respect. And even Lucky Luciano agreed. That's power, real power. When Bumpy died on July 7, 1968, thousands attended his funeral. And one of the stories told that day was about Vincent Romano, about the gun in his mouth, about the 3 seconds that defined Bumpy's entire career. An old woman who'd been at Small's Paradise that night spoke to younger generations. She said, "I was there. I saw it. Vincent called Bumpy the worst thing you can call a black man. Told him to stick to shining shoes. And Bumpy, calm as ice, put that gun right in his mouth. Didn't shoot. Didn't have to. Just made his point. That we're not servants. We're not shoe shine boys. We're people, and we demand respect." That's what Bumpy Johnson taught Harlem that night. That's his legacy. The story of Vincent Romano and the gun became more than just a gangster tale. It became a symbol for civil rights activists, for black entrepreneurs, for anyone who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, weren't smart enough, should stick to their place. Bumpy Johnson proved that accepting disrespect was a choice, and he chose violence over submission, dignity over safety, respect over peace. 3 seconds. That's all it took. One insult, one gun, one message. Bumpy Johnson demands respect, and anyone who forgets pays the price. Vincent Romano learned that lesson, lost his career, lost his reputation, lost his place in New York, all because he thought a black enforcer was beneath him, all because he told Bumpy to shine shoes. Look, this story represents something fundamental about Bumpy Johnson. He refused to accept the racism of his era, refused to bow down, refused to be treated as less than. When Vincent said stick to shining shoes, Bumpy stuck a gun in his mouth instead. And Lucky Luciano, the most powerful mobster in New York, backed Bumpy up. Because even Luciano understood, respect transcends race. And Bumpy Johnson had earned respect through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to defend his dignity. March 18, 1933. Small's Paradise. One racial slur. 3 seconds. One gun in one mouth. One career destroyed. One legend born. Vincent Romano told Bumpy to shine shoes. Bumpy Johnson proved he was nobody's servant, and Harlem never forgot. If this story about Bumpy Johnson's ultimate stand for respect got your attention, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because we're dropping true crime history stories every single week. Drop a comment and tell me, was Bumpy justified? Should Vincent have known better? And turn on notifications because next week we're telling another incredible Bumpy Johnson story. Remember, in 1930s Harlem, respect was everything. Dignity was everything. And never accepting disrespect was everything. Vincent Romano forgot that. He insulted Bumpy Johnson. And 3 seconds later, he was choking on a gun barrel, learning the hardest lesson of his life. Respect isn't optional. Not in Harlem. Not with Bumpy Johnson. March 18, 1933. One insult. 3 seconds. One gun. One lesson. Stick to shining shoes? Bumpy stuck a gun in his mouth instead. And nobody in Harlem ever made that mistake again.